Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems built on stacks secured by Bitcoin. Today, we have a special guest. You know him as Mark, core contributor, leader, czar. Have a special guest. You know him as Mark. Oops. Core contributor, leader, czar. Have a special guest. Sorry about that. Hey, Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks so much for dropping by, and sorry to hear about the stuff that's going on with the weirdos. We know you guys are working hard behind the scenes for that.
Yeah, just unfortunate that I guess there are just as many bad actors as good actors in this space. But hey, there we are.
Yep. Hey, so wanted to talk about apes together, Kongs, new drops coming up, the baby Kongs that are going to be pretty stoked. You guys just dropped the newsletter, so there's a lot of things going on, and Megacoin is coming out too. I saw the site; it looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah. We've had to push some things, just trying to be a bit too ambitious with our internal deadlines. So we've got a really exciting May ahead for the community. With the Megacoin, which is on stacks. So we've got some big ambitions there. We've been working with some really cool people in the space to make sure that on day one we're going to have the fully functioning DAO, and there's going to be some really cool utility for everyone. And then, like you said, the baby Kongs. Everyone seems to be excited for that. We're kind of calling that project Kong Fu right now, just because we want to do kind of like the Robot Factory. Right, the Robot Factory was really our first drop where we threw out the typical rulebook, and we're doing the same thing with Kongs. On the derivative or the baby mint. That's where we're really having fun and doing something that either will work and will be really exciting, or it just won't. But that's where we want to have some fun. We want to experiment, and there's a couple of reasons we can do that. One, it's a no-cost mint. Like the community isn't paying for it. So if we do something wrong where it's not a lot as much fun as we expect, then it's almost like we're fine with that. We haven't asked anyone to part with their hard-earned cash. Whereas the Kongs or the ape, where people are actively handing over quite a substantial amount of money, it would be a bit unwise for us to just mess around with those funds and have some fun there.
No, that makes sense. And really, why I wanted to have this conversation, it was supposed to be on the community spotlight because I think we focus a lot on Megapont apes and Kongs and all of the really cool creative work that you guys are doing. But you guys also have this really cool creator tool studio with Apollo, Kronos, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Freya?
Yeah. So the apes together tooling, we're really doubling down our efforts there because we've used all of this tooling on Weirdos and Megapont and Megakongs as well. And I actually just come off a call with some people who are going to help us out with some of the UI layer and the UX layer, which we really need to get over the line. But we're working really hard to avail these tools as soon as possible. And obviously, we have a few tools coming out this weekend, and it's going to be good to see some projects have access to tools that really, without like a specialized software developer, that either don't exist or you're not able to. So what we're doing there is really trying to empower a lot of the folks that we see in Megapont who have kind of got this idea of starting an NFT project, maybe an artist and maybe a developer, but they really don't have the full skill set, nor the liquidity to hire the team to deliver on it, or the connections as well. So we want to make sure that we're focused on tools that allow people to iterate on their ideas really quickly. And the community aspect, the communities for the most part are basically the same. I find that the Apes Together community is the Megapont community who just wanted to heavily bet on myself and the team. Mm-hmm. And it probably wasn't until the Stacks event in Miami where we really discovered how valuable the community is, especially the core community that we have as a project now, because Megapont is chain agnostic. It's a lot of people from ETH, there's a lot of people from other chains. But like the core Stacks community that we built on day one with a day one Megapont drop is certainly our sort of our most loyal customer base, community base, whatever you want to call them. And we certainly have considered them to be like partners in in the project as well. I've said this a few times in Discord, but we've certainly built with the community, not for the community, on Megapont in particular. And in the newsletter, we have this new transparency piece where we're like, hey, anything over $50,000, that's an expense to Megapont, we're going to tell you about, because all of Megapont's treasury is from the community. It wasn't for a long time. The team funded Megapont. It was loss-making. But now all of these big ticket items are funded either from the Megakongs mint, from commissions from Megapont or Megakongs. So we feel that, this is a community project. If we're spending $100,000 on an NFT NYC event, you should know about it and judge us on whether that's funds well spent. Obviously, it's not like a typical company. You can't get voters out. Maybe with Megacoin, you could be like, hey, this project has gone in a different direction. Let's bring someone else in. But Megapont in particular, it really is a community project at this time. You could say it's led by myself and Weasley, but you could also make the argument that if Mark and Weasley were to go away and someone else were to come in those roles, it would probably be fine. However, if the community were to disappear, or the core community left for a different project, I think Megapont would become a lot less valuable as a project without the community, more so than the team.
Yeah. I tell you, ever since the Megakongs, man, I've really been spending a lot more time in the Ape Village, and I regret not being in there more before. Been a holder since day one. It's really a great community. I've never seen a Discord chat that's just so active, and people are caring about each other's days and asking kind of nice, thorough questions. There's a lot of warmness in there, so it's a great place to spend time. I'm kind of wondering, like, is that something that you really focused on cultivating, or do you attribute that to just the folks in the kind of core community that?
A bit of both, really. I always, to touch on that, I always think people who come in who don't have access to Ape Village must think, God, this Discord's a bit dead. Like, why people buy into this project? This is wild. No chat. Mostly people say GM twice a day, and there's like 7 messages a day. Because Ape Village just transforms like your experience in the Megapont community massively. It's completely. If you're a holder of a Kong or an Ape, your experience in our community it's night and day from just being a general member or holder of, say, a robot or a Wasteland Ape. I put it down to a few things. One of them is just the right place at the right time as well. So in October, there weren't really any community-led projects on Stacks. We certainly went through that growth period where a lot of them came out. So you had Explorers, you had Crash Punks, you had us, you had Monkeys. But like around October, none of us existed. None of us had launched. None of us had built a community. So there really wasn't that community project at the time. And you had a lot of individual investors in Stacks, or a lot of folks who maybe at the time Ethereum was really expensive to play with. It isn't now. Like gas, you saw this on the Megakongs mint. It was $10 to mint, right? It's somewhere expensive than Stacks, but it's not prohibitively expensive. Whereas last October and last summer, it genuinely cost $400 to mint an NFT on Ethereum. It was really expensive. Gas was really high. The price was really high. Contracts weren't optimized, and it just cost a fortune to do anything. So the price of a Megapont mint at 50 stacks was less than gas for almost anything you were doing on Ethereum at the time. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, brought a lot of people over who were like, I'm really interested in NFTs, but I'm not going to spend, all of this money on my first NFT. So I think the Megapont was a lot of people's first NFT. And maybe by accident, we managed to attract a whole lot of people who were in a position where Megapont was their first NFT, but they weren't new to crypto. So we had folks who were educated in traditional crypto and maybe in DeFi, but they hadn't really touched NFTs before. And they're like, I'm just going to put 50 stacks in here and see what it does. And obviously, the experience of an NFT going from 50 stacks to 3,000 is going to leave a good impression on you as a collector. You're going to be like, hey, I want to be in this ecosystem a little bit more. I want to see what other projects there are, that kind of thing. So we were in the right place at the right time, and we aggressively haven't marketed Megapont in the traditional NFT sense. We have totally clamped down on partnerships. which at times have maybe been detrimental. We've probably said no to partnerships that would be hugely beneficial, but we, as a team, we struggle to see that. We struggle to see that the partnerships work other than maybe providing some initial activity to the price of the underlying asset, right? So maybe it spikes where 100 new people want to buy in, but long term, they're not really invested in the project, because the whole dynamic of the partnership kind of tells you from day one that a bunch of people whose primary project is X are coming to Y. So they're only really going to be passive participants in the community at most anyway. And one thing we certainly do want to do for Megacons, people, when marketing, and obviously we're kind of connected enough to have had promotional activities with almost any other project, and we didn't with anyone really. We had that one on the night of Mint with Creeps that we kind of weren't going to do, when we said to Joe over there, like, we can give you some, but we don't really want to push this out and be noisy about it. Because I think for a project to succeed long term, you need to build your core community first. And it's, you know what, it's slow, it's not easy, it's hard, it's very hands on. But I think you come out of it in a much better position. Had we just had a whole bunch of partnerships and just got a whole bunch of random people into Discord for Megacons, Ape Village would right now just be a mess. It would just be a whole bunch of people talking about floor, don't really care about the long-term vision of the project. They don't really care about the community. Now, that's not to say that I think Mr. Zion on the team said the number one utility you can offer to your collectors in an NFT project is to make them money. And I do think that's somewhat true, but it's tied very closely to the community, because if you speak to a lot of individuals in Ape Village, if you were to remove them, or when they move assets, they panic. They want to be back in straight away. They're like, oh, my role's gone because they moved an asset in a different wallet or something. They don't want to be out of the community. So in that regard, they kind of don't care so much about like the short-term price movements of the asset, because they just want to be in the community and they're seeing value from there.
That makes a ton of sense. What you guys built with the community too. I admittedly I aped in harder than I wanted to for the Kongs, but I missed out on the apes, right? So I said, you know what, I'm not missing out on this one. And the community you guys built within Discord is just phenomenal. And I'm really pretty stoked to see what you guys do within Stacker DAOs too, and what you've done with the robot too. I think other projects are going to start doing that eventually too, doing more customizations with traits. And it's really cool that you came up with a burn mechanism for the mega token. And you haven't showed much on the merch either. I saw a couple of clips a couple of months ago, and it had some, I think, some additional merch utility.
Well, we got a whole bunch of merch coming in May, a lot more than we've shown. We've took too long for this. Like, we just have not. This is one place that we really haven't done well. It's on the merch thing. We kind of underestimated how important it was to the community in some ways, and whether that's because the team's like, well, we kind of don't see ourselves wearing merch from any other NFT project, right? We're in a bunch, but I don't wear any of it, and I'm going to wear the Megapont one because I'm part of the team. And I think in our minds, we want the merch we don't want people to have to feel like they have to wear it. We want it to be like high quality, kind of subtle. It doesn't look out of place and garish, but also we just underestimated the demand for it as well. So it is coming. We're really excited to get that in the hands of people. And also, we're a tech team, really. Shipping traditional products is quite hard, especially in Megapont, where we have a whole bunch of the community in Asia, in North America, and South America. And what we really don't want to do is say to people, hey, you're over in South Korea, you don't get merch. Like, that sucks. So you've got a bunch of folks who've not got great experience with traditional shipping, finding shipping partners and all that kind of stuff. And there's the whole tax situation. So we are working on it. We are, we are sorry that it's took so long, because we know how excited people are to rep Megapont in public.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask too. I know you've said in public before talking about how a lot of these other projects are doing staking, and it seems like it's almost staking for staking's sake and all of that. And really kind of want to get the idea behind the kung fu's, like
Yeah.
the concept there. Seems like it's you guys are trying to go a different path, and I think people that they try to go a different path and be creative and not um, do something that just worked for others. I think people are really keen. They're really aware to that, and I think a lot of people will like it. So
Yeah, I mean, staking has utility, but like the modern version of staking with NFTs isn't really staking. It's, hey, we don't want you to list your asset, and we're going to give you some sort of made up random thing to incentivize you not to sell. That's literally all it is. Like, there's no other utility to like the network, to the project. Moonbirds are kind of saying, okay, you still need to not sell your asset to get this nice thing. It's just like we don't want the community to be in a situation where like real life happens, and at the end of the day, this is an experimental alternative asset class. And if real life happens, I don't doubt for a moment that a lot of members in our community, maybe they won't liquidate their full position, but they'll take a lot of money off the table to pay for real life incidents, right? My car broke down, or I want to pay for my child to go through school, or whatever. Um, we don't want to punish that. It makes no sense to punish the community for having to sell an asset. Because all projects are really saying when they do this is, hey, we're going to artificially increase the price of floor. And I've been very vocal in that I don't like this because it increases the price for new participants in the community, and two, I don't really know what it's doing because there's probably not much liquidity at that artificially increased floor anyway, right? So it really isn't. And some of these projects with staking, if you were to list a whole bunch of assets below the floor, it would plummet, right? Everyone else would follow. The floor isn't really set there. It's kind of loosely positioned as such. So with Kung Fu, what we really want to do is incentivize your active participation in what we're building without locking an asset up. But we're certainly going to punish the buyer if he buys an asset in some way. And by that, what I mean is if you've got a baby Kong that you've been playing around with on Kung Fu for some time and it's evolved into something quite special, as a buyer, you can't expect a lot of that progression to come over to you. It's going to reset, right? So what we're really doing there is saying it makes sense to buy if you're going to participate and not flip these assets, because your participation really isn't locked up in selling. It's like, hey, if I progress and sell this, then it's getting reset. Think if you sold like your World of Warcraft character and it would lose all of its items, right? It would lose all of its gold and all of its items. So what we're really trying to do there is have a little play around saying, okay, things reset when they're sold. And there's a whole bunch of technical things we're looking at there. It's like, how do we stop someone inevitably sending it to a wallet and being like, hey, I've lost all my progress. We don't want to lose this. So we're still working on some of these details. We might listen to specific marketplace events happening, but that could be quite tricky. So yeah, we'll work on a whole bunch of things, but we're not going to punish people for selling the assets. You just can't expect progression to move over. And obviously, the longer you participate in Kung Fu, the better the rewards, and there's more incentive there for you.
And I know we have to wrap up here, but the last thing, the scrolls are going to be really cool. What can we do with the scrolls?
Yeah, the scroll. So Steve thought about the scrolls. He was like, "Hey, we should definitely do this." And I said to him, "I was like, that's a really cool idea." So scrolls are going to be like a core part of the whole mechanic of Kung Fu. I don't want to call it a game because I think that would just be saying it's something that it isn't. But it's certainly like the Robot Factory. It's an interactive NFT experience, and everything is centered around acquiring scrolls and consuming those with your Kong. And evolving it and increasing attributes and stuff. It's a really cool concept. It's going to be super exciting. We're working on the UX and UI layer at the moment to make it as intuitive as possible. But scrolls, I guess you could consider as a consumable that can be traded as well. So there'll be an ERC 1155, can be traded, can be sold on the marketplace. But unlike the components, they won't be individual. You won't have 500 of them in your wallet, which is not what we want to do. And to go on that's why we're burning a whole bunch of components. We've heard people be like, I do not like these in my wallet. Please let me burn these in some way and get something back for them. So, you know, someone in the community actually described us as blockchain terrorists for the components. So we've certainly learned from that, and we don't want to clog up people's wallets with consumable items. It's not what we should be doing.
No, that makes sense. And I guess I also wanted to say, when Space Apes.
When Space Apes. Everyone is wondering what is going on with Space Apes. So from day one, we said Space Apes would be a surprise, and they will be a surprise. It's clear to everyone that good progress is being made on these things, right? So yeah, soon. Like that's it. So I'm not giving a date on this. I'm giving rough dates for everything else. But Space Apes, I'm standing by this. I don't care how mad people get. They will, and the drop there will. So it's no cost as well, right? So it's no cost. And we'll give like 48 hours notice. We'll probably put it in a newsletter and say, hey, Space Apes on Sunday. But yeah, no cost. It's going to be for everyone in the community holding a Megapont ape. And we'll give you a few days notice. We will announce the date for this in a newsletter. So for any scammers like, hey, Space Apes have launched, no, they haven't. It's going to be in a newsletter from us, and we will tell you when, but you won't get much notice. We'll probably put it in the Friday newsletter and launch it on a Sunday. That's how we'll do it.
Thanks so much, Mark. And where can people find more about you? Twitter?
Twitter and Discord's probably the best place. Discord.gg/Megapont. Just join Discord, ask around. Just come in and say hi, ask anything you want. There'll be someone there to help out.
Also, glad you had a really good time at the Liverpool Champions League game. That was awesome to watch, man.
Yeah, I'm a big Liverpool fan, but I haven't been going much over the last 2 years. I haven't been since before COVID, actually. So I went there with my dad, who I haven't seen in a while. We're both big Liverpool fans. It was nice. The result was good as well. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to spend a lot more time with family over the coming months. The last 6 months have been crazy for everyone on the team and everyone in the space. And I've just neglected those sort of real life duties, right? Yeah. So I'm looking forward to just spending it, especially as it gets nice in summer over here in the UK, spending some time outside and just doing a little bit more.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate it. Take care.
No problem. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Cheers.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much. And yourself. Bye-bye.
Thank you.